In this video, I'm going to talk about the Brower Quadrant. So if you think about optimizing your assets, it's a no-brainer for thinking about financial assets. That's your money, making your money make more money for you. Real estate, purchasing homes and commercial buildings so that you can have residual income past retirement. These are all safe investments. Retirement plans, this is 401ks for everything you're investing in. And then businesses that you own. Maybe you've built them from scratch or you've purchased them, built them, sold them. Maybe you're a serial entrepreneur. All of this makes a ton of sense for business owners. But what happens is we find business owners spend a lot of time working on those assets and they neglect their families. And so what we think is that second generation wealth, third generation wealth, fourth generation wealth, unheard of, depends on other things. And that's why we're building the Legacy Project. And I want to show you some things about it. So there's 4 total asset groups. It's your experience assets. This is what you learned from your education. This is your wins in business, your losses in business, your good and your bad experiences. They're both learning moments. Both of them can be banked if it's an intentional banking, if it's written down, put in an audio, put in a video, passed on in a story. And this is your reputation. You've spent a long time building your reputation. Reputation matters. Everybody knows people that burn bridges and destroy their reputation and their relationships like they don't matter. We all know what that person looks like. Your traditions, what do you do in a week? What do you do in a month? What do you do repetitively that has built the core of who you are? And then your core, this is your family, the time you spend with your family, the things you do with your family, and how you do those things. Your health, how do you keep yourself healthy? Is there a routine? Were you a good runner? What did you do? Are you good at practicing? Have you learned the fundamentals of a sport that you can pass on? Happiness and well-being, this is keeping our minds healthy, sharp, and not falling into small ailments that cause us to be unhappy. And then our values really are everything about the core. What do you believe? Do you believe in a higher power? Do you believe there's something greater than yourself? Do you believe in a prime mover? Do you believe in morality, ethics, and what do you believe? And then passing that, whatever that is, down to the next generation. And then you have this last group, contribution assets. This is your tax versus choice and controlling where you give your money. Being intentional about giving money. And then having charitable organizations that you support over time. Because, right, you want to give economies of scale to these people. You want to give them money that actually can make a difference for them. That's really a big chunk of what we're going to talk about in the beginning of this. So we're talking about the Brower Quadrant, an incredible quadrant. Look, at the middle of everything is the core. And everything we do is going to strengthen that core asset group. Experiences. What experiences do we have? What financials can we gain access to? What assets can we gain access to? Contributions, and how is it all encompassing around that core asset group? So we're always optimizing our core asset groups, and these are virtue-based values. So these are the values that extend and reinforce the bridges that allow the transportation of all our assets of great worth to future generations. This group is kind of like that middle connector, and we have to be intentional about getting all of these assets to the next generation so that they can be successful. When virtue-based values are reinforced by traditions and ceremonies, this again is the core, they become part of the fiber that makes up the mosaic of the entire family. Now we're talking about aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas, people that are married into the family. They are now a part of this mosaic. What is that blanket that people make? It's like a quilt. Every person is a person on the quilt. And what are they bringing from their core assets, their experience, their financial, and how can we have a blanket as a family that makes us stronger? Experience assets, the law of lifetime growth. Always make your future bigger than your past. Always make your learning greater than your experience. So what did we learn? This worked. This didn't work. This worked great. This could work, but not work for me. So we want to turn experiences into assets. To turn it into asset, we have to bank it. To bank it, it has to be in a form, in a story. And again, this is where you want to get what has helped you to get to where you've gotten, the people before you. Keep that legacy going so that your family brings more to the table. For future generations. A dull pencil is better than a sharp mind. Writing it down and sharing it. You know people with super sharp minds, right? And then they all eventually die, right? Because every human dies. A dull pencil is better than a sharp mind. If you don't share it, be intentional about writing it down, making a video, making an audio, your mind is going to not always be sharp and you will not always live. And so the rule is a dull pencil, get it written down, share it, share your experiences with somebody, hopefully your family. So to capitalize that asset to increase its value, we must give it a life of its own. And to do that, we must first capture the experience in writing or verbally share it with others. If we die without sharing those assets with others, the value of our experience assets dies with us. That's right, all those things that you've been doing for your family, working hard, making sacrifices, if we don't bank them as experiences, what those wins were as business owners, what those losses were, and we don't pass those down, they die with us. And there really is no value. So all that time you've been saying, I'm making these sacrifices for my family, but you didn't pass down those experiences, then really nobody wins. Are we guilty of investing those assets under our mattresses and not putting them to work for us? So experience. So we've delegated this. So back in the day, families, they would get together after work and they would talk. They would sit around at the table and they would communicate. What did they go through in the day? What did they experience in the day? What worked? What didn't work? What did they learn? What did they not learn? With their children. The television comes along, right? People would hang on at the radio, listen to the radio together, listen to the game, and then the television came. So we've delegated this time-honored tradition of storytelling, transferring values, lessons, and vital family stories to television. And now the kids are on phones, they're on iPads, they're on computers, they're on games, and it's even worse. And we have to be intentional about banking these experience assets in storytelling, in writing, in video, and spending time and sharing. When many of us think about the past, we dwell on our errors instead of capitalizing our assets or experiences. This is what we learned. Every business owner has a failed venture. Every business owner has a mistake. Every business owner has learned the hard way. That's how you get to success. You have to bank those experiences. We don't look back in failure, this didn't work or this did work. We bank those experiences for the people in our family so they don't repeat them, so that they learn from them, or they do repeat them. We think about what we should have done, what we should have said. I'm really big about having a meeting and then for hours later stewing on what I should have said, what I should have done. How we should have been, instead of focusing on what we experienced, what we learned, and how we can share that learning with others. So we really want to think about what was the takeaway. And every time I've ever lost in business, my first question to myself was, what's my takeaway? What did I learn? What did I learn that I did wrong? And that's what we want to do. Like all business owners do that. We ask ourselves, what was the mistake in our view, right? Because obviously our lives are rearview mirrors, and there's dead spots in every single person's own rearview mirror that other people can obviously see. Other business owners could look at your experience and be like, well, duh, that's what you did wrong. There's blind spots, we get it. But what can you bank in your experience to turn those experiences into assets that follow down the brand of your family? It's the legacy. So contribution assets. First, you're disproving the old saying, there's no such thing as a free lunch. You will have engaged each of them in an internal dialogue about paying it forward. You are going to be spontaneous with giving. You are going to be intentional with giving. You are going to be purposeful and use your economies to take care of organizations. We want to disprove that there's no free lunch by being in a line for fast food or for coffee and buying it for the person behind us. For that person, that was a free lunch. Okay, don't say, yeah, but you paid for it. Yeah, we get the argument, we get it. But for that person, that was a free lunch. And so there is free lunches, and we want to provide those free lunches when it's applicable, right? It's not always applicable. Whether you're buying lunch for a stranger or putting a quarter in someone else's parking meter, you're creating a conversation. It's that conversation. It's that fabric. It's that contribution asset. About being a giving person, about realizing that these finances are resources, that money is a resource. It's that book, The Richest Man in Babylon, how you make money work for you. And so we want to share with others what we have, paying it forward. Paying forward is a form of karma. It's just that good juice out there in the earth, whatever you want to call it. It's out there looking to pay you back. It's a reality. It's a beautiful way to create a spontaneous legacy. that whole luck factor. Like, why does this person always fall into luck? This could be a part of it, paying it forward. Somebody may have paid it forward for them. We want to pay it forward. So by sharing the good with others, we change the thought patterns. We go from thinking about ourselves about thinking others, about not how I can guard this or make more of this, but how can I take this resource and positively affect the world, the planet, your neighborhood, etc. So how can we pass along joy? What's better than really that? These are contribution assets. Now, the spontaneous legacy, Zig Ziglar concluded by saying, wouldn't it have been a lot simpler if Mr. Big would have jumped into his car at the country club, headed directly to the secretary's home, just kicked the dog himself? Mr. Big's in his office. He's a super important guy. He just takes it all out on the secretary. It's not really her fault. She's the messenger. He treats her like garbage. She goes home because she's had such a bad day with him. The dog does something she doesn't like. She kicks the dog. The Zig Ziglar says, cut out the middleman. If you're gonna treat people like garbage, just go to the home and kick the dog yourself. So the ultimate level of charity, it's tzedakah. And tzedakah is charity performed completely anonymous. Now, not all charity should be anonymous, obviously, because there are tax benefits that make sense for businesses and for individuals. But when you need to have a tzedakah moment, if you want to elevate your personal esteem or lift yourself out of that depression maybe, this is good for mental energy. So perform anonymous, unexpected act of kindness for someone else. You'll feel better. It's just going to happen. When you give to others, then mental energy that creates in the brain, it's just good for health. Contribution assets, here, the family contribution system. So thank you for thinking of us. We have a family organization that reviews all the charitable opportunities that are presented to us. Would you be willing to send us an annual report so that we as a family can elevate it for next year's contribution budget? This is a great opportunity to talk about the difference between being proactive and reactive, because the more money you make, the more people come to ask you about donations to their organizations. The bigger the donation needs become, the bigger your ability to meet those. And so then now you can start vetting and be intentional of, thank you so much for asking and giving us the opportunity. Please send over your financials so we can see how you spend your money, how you're using those donations, so you can make perfect decisions with that money. Be intentional. And then you can bring economies of scale to these organizations that have a proven track record of using that money wisely. I can think of several of them myself. And so again, you got to figure out what your family's passion is. Is it educating people that can't afford it? Is it the underdog? Is it families in need? Is it animals? Is it kids that don't have parents? Whatever it is, this is where you want to add your contributions to these organizations that are taking care of these things. So it just goes to show, it's not just about writing a check. It's about getting our children proactively involved in the decision-making process. As your kids grow up and get older, you can start including them in that contribution dialogue. Hey, we've got this money and we want to give it to an organization. What's on your mind? What's on your heart? What do you like to take care of? Good. Let's look at the family. If there's 4, 5, 6 of you or more, and you're giving from a business or something, get together and talk about those and be intentional. Include people in the conversation, in the decision-making process. This becomes an asset, an experience that we pass on to the next generation. And this is how we bank it. So Lynn Twist suggests that when you let go of trying to get more of what you don't really need, it frees up oceans of energy to make differences with what you have. When you make a difference with what you have, it expands. True wealth shows up in the action of sharing and giving, allocating and distributing, nourishing and watering the projects, people, and purposes that we believe in and care about with the resources that flow through us. We want to become a river, a tributary with our contributions as successful business owners. We do not want to become a lake. We do not want to build a dam. We want to be a river. So no matter how much or how little money you have flowing through your life, it doesn't matter. It's not about volume here. When you direct it with a soulful purpose and passion, you feel wealthy. There's something about that brings health, that allows you to think about money not as an owner, but as a resource, as an asset, as it should be. And then as we create these tributaries of, and even if it's a trickle, even if it's a drop, you just find a way to manage that, create a flow. And your children see this. They see that you're not trying to acquire a bunch of wealth to dam it off for yourself, because that just becomes hedonistic. It becomes about the individual. It becomes selfish, and it becomes dangerous. And then when you pass that down to a second and third generation, they really see you as someone damming it off for themselves. So then they're always trying to figure out how to dam it off for themselves instead of building a river, a tributary. Contributors to society are those who are aware of their surroundings and sense the congruities and incongruities with their higher purpose. Every individual has a unique purpose, a unique thing that just matters to them more than the person next to them. They know what activities violate their purpose and which promote their unified family purposes. That's why we got to get together with family and talk about this. And you may not even need to talk about it. You may just be around your family enough. We meet with our family every single Sunday, all the time. We know what organizations that we all like to give to. We all give to similar ones. And so we want to have organizations that you give to and you buy from that are congruent with your personal purpose, with your personal morals or ethics. Now, when we're thinking about how we manage our money, think about it in 4 buckets. So here you would look at a contribution bucket. And this is giving means having more. Before you think about how I can invest or how I can pay for the way I want to live, first talk about how you can give. If you give first on the money that you're making, then you're honestly gonna flow. Everything through you is first gonna be through this lens. How can I think about others first? As I made more money, how can I take care of others? You don't have to have a 10%. It could be 2%. It could be 100%. You could have assets and produce a ton of money and you've got everything paid for and you give 100% of your proceeds or your net. It could be 1%. It could be 2%. It just needs to be something that's easy to manage. Just set a percent if you need to, or set an agreement with yourself and just keep objects in motion stay in motion. So don't make it where you can't keep it up, because then when you get out of motion, it's really hard to get back into motion. Keep something that will keep you in motion, that you can grow from a small little creek to a tributary to the Amazon. So the money will come from wherever it is right now. You think you don't have the money to do it? You don't know where the money's gonna come from? It's gonna come from wherever it is. So wherever you spend it, if you buy a lot of fast food and you eat out a lot and you buy video games and you go to the casino, and you just don't know how you're going to deal with your contribution assets, it's going to come from the financial assets. Wherever that money is now, it's small changes, it's modifications, it's manageable, one bite at a time. We don't eat an elephant in one bite, it's one bite at a time. We don't build an Amazon in just all at once. It's a small tributary that turns into something in motion. Put it in motion, and so keep feeling out what it feels like it's in motion, so that when your body's in motion, you're used to it. Taking it up, exceeding what you've set becomes easy. Number 2, stability. After we consider how we can take care of others that can't take care of themselves, or organizations that are nonprofits and their whole goal is to make money, like my business is the whole goal is to make money, and we got to do it with such excellence that people keep buying from us. So the LTV keeps going up, the CAC, cost to acquire the client, keeps going down, my payback period kind of starts to shorten, right? All of these things matter as a business owner. When it comes to our money, think of others first. Number 2, think of your own stability. What money do you need to live the life you're trying to live? Everyone's trying to live a different standard of living, and that's okay. America is so amazing like that. You can really live wherever you want in any given city in America or in the country. And so secondly, the second bucket of our money, after we've done this contribution component, we then think of stability. And then after stability, then we're talking about independence. Low risk investments, real estate, mutual funds, retirement plans. This is really that third bucket of money. And I'll be honest, I oftentimes mess up my third bucket and my fourth bucket. I'll show you the buckets here. Business owners, we really do this very often. We think of others, we think of stability, we think of risky investments, and then independence, like low risk investments, fourth. Really, it should be contribution, stability, independence, and then high risk, the get rich style investments. So we're thinking of others, thinking of about standard of living, and then we're thinking about the low risk real estates, things like that are just, we know they're going to make us money in the long run. And then we fill that fourth bucket of what are some high risk investments, some opportunities that I can take a risk on. Business owners inherently have the get rich probably before even contribution. That's how you all got here. That's how we get here. It's the get rich, own my own business, have my own freedom, make more money than I can at a job. And then we never reshuffle it to be at the fourth line after everything is stabilized. Instead of riding on the roller coaster, now you're riding on a freight train. And so when you're on that freight train and now you're trying to grow your business and you've got high cost of doing business, but the income's about to be there. And so you're always like trying to work on these graphs and the income versus COGS and the income versus cost of doing business and how much a business should have net, especially if it's LLC versus C Corp and all the different ways that you're going to pay yourself over the years or get paid. And so when you are ready, when you can, flip the get rich, the business mindset of this is my passion, this is my baby, the entrepreneurial, the thing you have to work through, back over where it should be. And it's contribution, it's stability, it's independence, it's get rich. Creating clarity, one hat. And so the next thing I really want to talk about is in America, we wear a lot of hats. And I know we're going down a road here, but this is all the Brower Quadrant. And so we wear a lot of hats. In America, you're a brother, you're a father, you're on the advisory board, you're a business owner, you're an investor, you're a dad, you're many things. And what happens is in America, we wear them all at the same time. And the more hats you wear at any given time causes your focus to be unstable. It's mediocre at best. So one hat plus one focus equals a sense of time standing still. At any moment, my employees do this all the time. They're like, William, I can't do those three things at once. I'm gonna do this hat first. And you have to be intentional about, I am doing this right now. Because if you don't wear one hat at a time flies. It moves so fast. But if you're intentional and spend time in that moment with that one hat on, time slows down. It actually starts to feel like it stands still. Think about the child waiting for his grandparents, wearing one hat, right? When you're sitting and waiting for someone, wearing one hat, it takes forever for that person to show up. It's because you got one hat. It's the waiting on my grandparents' hat. It feels like time is taking forever. It takes 5 minutes for grandma to get there. That's the power of one hat. It brings this heightened clarity. It's like everything kind of slows down like the Matrix. So again, I did this some things for myself, just very rudimentary at the core, family and God, above everything. Taking care of my family, making sure that I have understanding of who I am in the grand scheme of things. Experience, continue learning. I love learning. That's why I'm in digital marketing. That's why I'm a marketer, because it's a bleeding edge. It never stops changing. It's like fast paced, being created as we speak. And so continue learning is this experience thing that I want to pass down to my children, of how I continue to learn, how I learned things that I was never taught, how I teach myself things I've never been taught, how to teach myself, right? In college, these professors, they teach us how to learn and they say, go read that. But they never finally flip the switch and say, now you go show me what you can teach yourself how to learn. But they always leave us in this, but I need a teacher. I got to get in a course. I got to find someone to teach me. Instead of flipping the switch for students and saying, now you're no longer going to have us and pay us. What we taught you was not all this education. We taught you how to eat an elephant in multiple bites, how to find a book and consume it, how to find a discipline and learn about all things about that discipline. We taught you that. Now it's your turn. Go and do it. And so these are the lessons that I will pass down. And contribution, giving more regularly in larger amounts. And then finances, debt-free, long-term investments. These are all things that I continually focus on for my own Brower Quadrant. So another thing in the Brower Quadrant is a thing called gratitude rocks. And if you're having a hard time with gratitude, the suggestion is an experience never shared dies with us. And so if somebody you're noticing just isn't having the gratitude that they should, my children all the time, hand them a rock and say, every time that you touch this rock in your pocket, think of something that you are grateful for. What does that do? It causes us to, every time we accidentally touch that rock, to change our mental energy. Hey, I need to think about something positive. I just touched the gratitude rock. And then when you find people that you want to share the gratitude rock with, do it. Give them a rock and say, every time you touch this in your pocket, you are passing on joy. You're passing on healthy mental energy. It's impossible for darkness and light to occupy the same space at the same time. So when you force yourself to get in a routine of gratitude just all day long, oops, I touched that rock, gratitude, it expels the I'm ungratefulness, the I'm entitled, the I'm owed this mentality. I believe the same thing is true when it comes to negativity and creativity. Negativity and creativity, they really can't live in the same place. So how are we gonna share our experience? We're gonna bank that experience. We're gonna deposit it in the Quadrant Bank for future success. We're gonna share it. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna write it. Anytime you don't share, write, do an audio, do a video, you don't bank it. Yes, it becomes a part of your DNA. We get it. We all get it. Everything we've ever read, everything we've ever learned, everything we've ever won or lost, it is truly a part of this human's DNA. But until we extract it from our DNA, we are not banking it until it is put in a different form. That's why you want to start building legacy films like these, so that you can pass this down to 2 generations away from you. When you're older and you don't want to talk about all the things you've experienced, you just want to, buy the grandkids or the great grandkids things, and then they are too young to really ask the questions that they need to ask you to pull out those experiences. We want to bank them now. So for something to increase in value in our day-to-day world, it must first be appreciated. Until we appreciate things, we just don't value them. And our kids are living proofs of this. Like, they could own a million toys and they'd still want the other 3 toys that they don't have. So we have to appreciate things. Whenever there's a breakdown, it's invariably due to the lack of a system. And so that's why the gratitude rock, who cares? It's just a system. Put in places in your house, in your life, systems to appreciate and bank experiences. This is putting it in your quadrant. So I've learned that most failures are a result of systems, not the individual. Every time in my own business I have a failure, something falls through the crack, I ask myself what's broken in the system? How can we bridge that gap? How can we make it where the individual doesn't have to do that, but the system does that? How can automation or a robot do those things? Conversely, it'd be safe to assume that most successes are also a result of the system. So positive parenting is a prime example. Positive focus provides a system for capturing the happy events in our lives that might otherwise go unremembered. Gratitude may not be the greatest of virtues, but is the parent of all the others. Gratitude, it just leads to so much when we're thankful for what our parents have done, what our friends have done, what our colleagues have done, what the clients have done for the business. And we don't want these assets, we don't want to fail to capture them and let them fall through the cracks of our lives. We lose them. The next generation loses them. That's why when you have a super successful person that doesn't bank experiences and the gratitudes along the way, and banking them into the asset and the experience assets, it's lost. And then the thing that a lot of people focus on their entire lives is passing the financials, getting past the tax man so that the government doesn't get their 25, 30%, 40%. We work our whole lives trying to structure this whole thing, pass it in percentages over years, etc. But we forget to pass the things that will allow that second generation to manage those resources effectively. Instead, they get it, they squander it, they lose their lives. They don't actually have any of the fabric and the experiences themselves that we should have allowed them to have, and then the next generation after that. And that's why generational wealth, it's done after the second generation. Very often doesn't pass second generation, third, even less often, and fourth is super unheard of. The assets we fail to capture, we lose. To capture it, write it down. So goals, right? What's wrong with goals? You may want to use goals to get you started, but a clear vision is what we keep going until we reach the destination. Goals are good, but as soon as we stop hitting the mark, we stop our goal. That's the beginning of the year goals, right? It's a vision. Where am I trying to get to? And once I know where I'm trying to get, I really don't need goals. I really just need benchmarks. It's like miles on the highway. And then every day I want to focus on, like, if you've ever read a book, really long book, and you're like, gosh, I need to read a chapter a day, or I need to read a book a month, and I want to get through this whole book. And so you miss a couple days, and then you're like, I'll forget it, I've lost it. The better thing to do is not try to set goals, but to just set yourself in rhythm. Get a pace that you can keep, and then guess what? That trickle turns into a tributary, turns into a river, turns into something great, because now you've got a pace that you can keep. Objects in motion stay in motion. You can pick up, accelerate more, and you can keep that. And so just set yourself in motion every day, even if it's just a little. with a vision, with a destination where we're going. It's great because the horizon is kind of like, hey, that's where my vision is. As you start to go towards that horizon, it actually kind of gets further because your vision expands. So goals must be tied to a realistic vision. We don't want to have a vision that we can't reach. A goal without a vision is just a suggestion. It's really making a suggestion to ourselves. Here in America, we don't follow through on our own suggestions. I was focusing on the task, not the vision. Like, I got to do this task every day. That's why you didn't keep it up. That's why you didn't set it in motion. That's why it didn't become a part of who you were. It's because you're thinking about that task. I got to do that today. I got to read that one chapter. Today, I got to do that half mile. Instead of, what is my vision? My vision or my goals, or the goal of my future, the vision, is to get here. What do I need to do today to get there? And that's why I continuously read books. And it's because that is the motion that I have set myself in. I continually consume books. I'll be reading 1 to 3 books at any given time. I just finished one, and then I turn right around and I try to teach it so that it soaks into who I am. And that's kind of a big part of my experience assets, is if I will turn around, read a book, turn around and try to teach it to somebody, it locks it in. Or if I stop and try to put it in play, that's a big part of what I'll pass on to my next generation. So instead of focus on the task, focus on the vision. You need to have the why clear. Why are we trying to do this? If you have a big enough why, you will always find the how. The key is to get in motion. Objects in motion stay in motion. It's the law of physics. What steps can I take today that will move me closer to my vision? Unlike a goal, your vision is never quite attainable. It's that horizon that the closer you get, it just kind of expands. You can't sneak up on it. You can't get up before daybreak and wait for it to appear beneath your feet. It's just, you can't catch it. And so we really just want to have our vision like that. It's just kind of, it's like it leads us in the right direction. It keeps us in motion. And then if we are not in motion, our minds are incapable of providing us with realistic new horizons. As you get in motion, you just find you can do things easier, faster, better. And then it's just the horizon changes. All of a sudden, more opens up to you. So our vision evolves. So the steps we take each day, we find that our getting in motion allows us to work things out with ourselves, how good we can be at certain things that are important to us, especially those essentials. We're not talking about non-essential things. We're talking about essentialism here. And the milestones. We want to set milestones. What are the mile markers? And appreciate those milestones. Remember those milestones. Make them a big deal for yourself. The best step toward progress for a sailor would be to simply pull up the anchor. Now, we're not pulling up the anchor. We're pulling up an anchor 1 inch. So we don't pull up the anchor all the way. To get in motion, pull up the anchor 1 inch. Guess what? If you're in water, motion of the water is going to start moving the boat. All you got to do is get the anchor up one inch. We're not talking about pull it up all the way. That's too much sometimes to get in motion. The real purpose of the goal is to liberate the anchor. This will happen when your vision is clear, your milestones have been identified, and you're taking your simple daily steps. Motion is the key. It's a law of physics. Determine for yourself what the least you can do today is now. What's the least you can do today? This moment. What can you do to lift your anchor just enough to get in motion? Instead of high quotas or goals, we want to have a clearly defined vision for a team. A vision allows us to see ourselves benefiting from the goal. How we attain the goal is secondary. We want to focus on the feeling we know we will have when that vision becomes a reality. Everyone that's ever reached a vision, reached a place that they felt like, this is where I'm heading, it's an incredible feeling. It changes everything about yourself. And so we want to set with our teams, with our family, with our kids, attainable goals. Because what we find is when they reach that, they've got all kinds of energy to pass it. Whereas if they don't hit them, then they continually feel like a failure. And so instead of feeling like, man, I hit this and I exceeded it, and that's what we want goals and really attainable milestones to be like. The great motivator Earl Nightingale illustrated this with an example of a ship's captain. You could approach a ship's captain in any harbor and ask how he was going to make it to the next port of call. He would tell you calmly and confidently that as long as he did the same things every day, he knew that he would reach his destination, even though he would not see land for 99% of his journey. Think about that. You're a captain setting out across the ocean. You are not going to see land for 99% of the time. On the final day you see land, what do you do in between here and there? You make the same motions in the same order. You do it with precision. You do it daily because you know that is going to get me to the other side of the ocean. Think of your attainment of your vision as a captain passing the ocean. When we set expectations for ourselves that are easily met, we find it equally easy to exceed them. When we set the bar too high, we set ourselves up for frustration. We get frustrated. I can't keep this up. I can't do this. I wanted to do this. It's too much. I can't keep this pace. Set a pace that you can meet and exceed. Establish a high vision. Visualize yourself there, actually have achieved it, and then ask yourself what small steps you can take today. As we ascend each rung of the hierarchy of human needs, what we find is, remember the hierarchy of needs, like I need shelter, I need health, I need friendships. The crazy thing is as you pass each hierarchy, and this is in studies, we take for granted all the issues and the struggles that were in the previous rung. Like when we didn't have enough to pay the rent or buy food, but finally we've got a steady job and we do, and we really forget those struggles. They really don't stick like we think they would. So once we move past survival mode, we no longer even have thoughts of how to survive. It just kind of ingrains in us. We just naturally get it. Even though just putting bread on the table might have previously been outrageously difficult. For this reason, we can expect to pass our milestones without too much fuss or fanfare. It's not a big deal. As you pass your milestones, as you go from these different places, you just kind of go by. And it's a milestone and it happened. And it really kind of is from this understanding that we don't look back and say, wow, how did I make that happen? At one point I couldn't even feed myself, I was starving, but now I have massive abundance. You just kind of pass these things when your vision's set. If just for today I could accomplish only one thing, ask yourself, what would be the most meaningful task or step I could complete that would move me closer to my vision? Families have to do this. Do this with families, do this with kids, do this with your business. So here's the empowered quadrant bank. Experience assets, the knowledge and experience acquired and networks subsequently formed. Make sure your family is meeting your network. Make sure that you're helping them meet super important people. Make sure your family is integrated throughout your networks. Make sure they are gaining the knowledge that you purchased and you earned. Make sure that your core assets, your health, happiness, well-being, family members, they're understanding, they're spending time with this group. Your financial assets, the one that we spend all the time on, and probably the least important one for success of a second generation. The wins, the assets, the real estates, what we learned, what we did right, what we did wrong. Contributions, your giving opportunities, how you're intentional about it. Become the glue that holds families together. So if a second or third generation receives too much money, a lot of money, or a huge amount of financial resources, it then may become their role in this thing we call life, to find ways to contribute to other organizations. Their whole role may be to manage those funds and manage them well. And they may get together and say, look, we're second generation from XYZ grandfather. What can we do? Can we get into politics? Can we get into nonprofits and really use these resources to make a change in the world? And if it aligns with what they're trying to do in their lives, it's a perfect fit. So binding generations with a sense of purpose and accomplishment as they focus on improving their communities. This is when a second generation receives a financial benefit, how they can then work together to make a difference in the world. What do they then do? Imagine having all of your family's true assets available to you. Everyone in your family, aunts, uncles, grandma, grandpa, dad, mom, sisters, brothers, cousins. Imagine having all that. None of us do in America. None of us bank on the family, on the quilt. None of us cash in on the quilt. The knowledge, the wisdom, the relationships, the networks, the methods, the values, the traditions, stories, the encouragement and help. Using your family as a resource is a legacy. And this is the quadrant of success, how when we do finally pass down financial resources to family members, they get it. They know how to manage those things, and they've got a structure in place where they can also successfully pass down to the next generation. Just as well, run corporations or banks outlive their founders, often by many generations. We know businesses, Sears, I mean, it's terrible now, but Sears and businesses like that have outlived founders by many, many generations. This is what a quadrant bank does. It becomes a vehicle for holding your family's most treasured assets, financial and otherwise, and trust for future generations. It's a bundle deal. It's a package deal. Just the financial assets, it's not the complete picture. This is not how successful second and third generation families, fourth generation families, this is how they do it. They've got, they understand their asset groups and how it's benefiting the whole family. It's not just about the money. So what does our family stand for? This is what you have to ask. You have to get together and say, what is our brand? What is our legacy? Who is XYZ last name? Who are we in this grand world? And so it's going to keep changing every direction, and it may change slightly when people get married and they bring new families in. So what maxim best describes your family's ideology? What do we do? What are we about? What are we trying to pitch in this life? When people think of us, what do we want them to think about? It can be fun to condense your philosophy into a slogan so that everyone in the family can easily remember and recite it. What is a Nozak? We might say something like a learner. A Nozak is a learner. We like to continually learn about things. Or a teacher. And these are just examples, like even in one word or in a slogan. So if we do nothing to pass along our values, there is a significant chance that our values will never make it to the fourth generation, right? How amazing would it be if you could keep living after generation after generation after generation, because you only get one life. And if you want to see your values reach the fourth generation, it's essential to create a system for passing along your values down through your future family. It's not going to happen if you're not intentional about it, if you don't create a legacy. So there's a story, horse by many names. Warwick is a horse or an animal, and it's pulling a cart, and the owner keeps calling him out. Keep pulling, Warwick. Keep pulling, Johnny. Keep pulling, Don. And why? Is because this blind horse or donkey, doesn't matter, pulls better when it believes other animals are pulling with it. So what do we know about this farmer? The farmer's getting the best out of this animal by calling it by different names. It's blind. It doesn't even know that's the only one pulling. Humans are the same way. We actually pull better when we believe that people, when we're a part of a team. We actually do better. When you feel like you're a part of a quilt, and your business feels like it's bringing this asset bank, people just pull better when they pull with others. We're a lot like Warwick, and we all pull together when we feel that we're part of a team. So you have to be intentional, making your family feel like a team. The 5 phases of wealth here, and we're gonna keep moving here down this quadrant, right? The first phase is the incubation stage. Here's the life form is attempting to survive and grow. 5 stages of true wealth growth and development include that we're gonna cover striving, driving, thriving, arriving, and diving. It takes only 4 minutes to rise to the top of the St. Louis Arch, but 3 minutes to come down. Anyone that's had successful business understands this is true as it gets when it comes to business. It's gonna take you years and years to get there. It could take you months to destroy it. And the St. Louis Arch is the analogy. 4 minutes up, 3 minutes down. And so it's like a boomerang effect when people are in the cruising. What happens is humans, they get in this cruising. Like, I want to do this. Oh, no, I can't do that. I need to do this. Well, I don't have the money for it. I need to do this. Well, I need the experience for it. So they're in this cruising phase between the 2 arch legs. They live their life in reaction, avoiding growth at all costs. These people just, at all costs, avoiding it. Unwilling to risk going beyond the imaginary boundaries that someone or something else has created for them. The achievement of wealth cannot occur until you leave your comfort zone. But then you have the first leg going up the St. Louis Arch. We call these strivers. Anyone that's ran a business is in striving phase or in some phase along this. Strivers are willing to go beyond the city limits and search for their passion. They begin their ascension along this arch many times. Anyone that's been a business owner, many times. You're ascending into striver phase many times. False starts, fake starts, didn't work, broke it, ran it into the ground. Continuing to look for something better, right? This business is a vehicle, and you're looking for the right vehicle. All of us have started a good business that just wasn't the right vehicle. It wasn't gonna get us where we needed to go. So you continue to look for something better, something magical, the perfect ride that will scale. I've started many businesses that made no sense with scale. Once I finally got there and I'm like, okay, how do I scale this? I can't. Some spend a lifetime striving to find the perfect vehicle, and that's unfortunate. The sooner you can find a good vehicle, the sooner we can learn from our family and get this quadrant value, the sooner we can get into a good scalable vehicle. This is why we have to talk to people about these things, because they've already been there. They've got the experience assets that we need to pull from. Striving, You can't get past striving. This is going up the leg of the arch here, right? Cruisers back and forth. I don't know. I just don't, I gotta pick side. I don't know. I can't do it. Strivers are going up the arch. We're actually making a move towards wealth. And in this phase, creativity, hard work combine with the struggle of trial and error, and it results in a breakthrough. Somewhere in this striving phase, there's always this luck factor. How did they make it? How did their business survive? How did it get so good? It's just like this momentum meets the perfect opportunity, and people call it luck, but really it's this creativity and hard work combining somewhere in that striving phase. Boom, businesses happen, families happen. This phase is marked by numerous detours, false starts, twists and turns, momentum changes, excitement, downtimes, despair. You know it. That's the striving phase. At the end of phase 1, though, people fully understand that wealth starts with finding their individual passion. We can't rob our children of finding their individual passion. We can't give them all this resources and not also require of them to find out what they are passionate about, what they can develop into as a human at their core, and then what they can learn, their intellectual capital. Along with all the intellectual capital and the core assets we're gonna pass, they also have to develop their own. So they have a broader personal and cultural perspective. Their human and intellectual capital is developed sufficiently to interact successfully with others. You people in surviving, they start to build professional networks. They start to connect with others. They start to be able to communicate with more groups of people. Ideally, it should be the intention of every first generation wealth creator to honor and nourish that same opportunity of discovery, that intellectual, that core, that grind, that how do we get this to work, trial and error thing that people go through, and development for every family member. We don't want to rob second generation of this. I've seen it in my own family. I've seen my grandfather's successful business not provide this trial and error for his own kids. It never works. These people, they don't know how to handle the successful business that's handed to them. They don't do it right. I've seen it. I've seen it many times with second generation business owners. Some are successful, some are not. Why? Remember all those kids that were wealthier than you? And some of them, they're like worse off than you, but some just are such a rate that you never feel like you can catch up to. Rich Dad, Poor Dad fell this way. If you've ever read that book. Why? Because the family member that's passing on this wealth is also focusing on these experience assets, core assets, and contribution assets. It's these 4 things that are allowing for momentum into second generation wealth. So now striving, ideally should be an intention of every generation to allow them to have this same trial and error, discovering each child's unique ability, what they love to do, what they don't like to do, what just jives with their personality, provides the deepest gas tank for a child. If we try to get them to be like ourselves, they will run out of gas. Humans cannot be someone else for long stretches of track, parts of their lives, right? We want our kids to be like us, but they weren't built that way. Some of them were, most of them are not. So we have to find out what their unique abilities are, their passions and their interests, and their gas tank is small if they're not lining with their desires, but it's never ending when we find out what they're passionate about, and then we equip them. And then they take all those resources and it just makes them better. It gives them an acceleration rate and a natural speed that other people are like, how do they have that pace? One of the greatest gifts that parents can give their children is to discover the child's passion and unique ability. So phase 2, we're driving. We're past driving, we're in driving. We now are driving the vehicle. We're no longer on the roller coaster, we're now on a freight train. It takes us up the arch. The perfect career, perfect business opportunity. Once we find that vehicle and we stick with it, we're no longer hopping in different vehicles. This one doesn't have scale. This one costs too much. This one I hate. This one's not good. This one's, the economy is changing and it's like, becoming a dinosaur. It's not a star. And so we found the right one. We're driving it. We're striving. Now we're driving. And we stick with it, and we've got momentum and improving it along the way. We've got systems, we're making it better. We're adding team members, training, getting good clients, being successful. Onward and upward, we drive. We're on the second part of the arch here. We're going strivers to drivers. We're not cruisers. I feel terrible for cruisers. Strivers, drivers. And so we're now gonna head to thriving. Stage 3 of wealth, of the phases of wealth. Its greatest value to the family is derived from its wealth of educational services. The Rockefellers, still to this day, super powerful. They probably don't have a legacy program like I'm talking to you about right now, but they have something in play. And I don't know what it is, but I can tell you it's some sort of experiential sharing, of contribution sharing, where they're all aligning their family quilt. The Rockefellers' family mission is to grow the human and intellectual capital of the family. We know they're getting something right. It's about the family. How can we continue to drive this family brand further and make a difference in the world? Family Wealth, James E. Hughes discusses the Rockefeller success. You can learn about it more in that book. The resulting contributions of the third generation Rockefellers to philanthropy, to government, to intellectual banking, and to the birth of new industries through highly venturous investments. It's remarkable. Why? Because we allow them to find their passions, what they're good at, and now they've got resources, and now they've got the backing to be successful and have just a different level of success. So here's thriving. We don't hit driving in this pace and all of a sudden we coast and we start coming down. We find a way to share more than just financial wealth. This is what thrivers do. So if you don't know how to replicate or capitalize your successes, how you got here, you have no clue. Oh, I feel so terrible for you. Hopefully you have an understanding how you've gotten here, what you've done that has led to this, the development of teams, the development of processes, the risks that you've taken, the risks that you've avoided, the relationships that you've made, the contributions that you've made into other organizations, and the network and things like that, and the value of family, and the things that you decided not to do because it would cost you something that was super important in one of these other categories. So we have developed systems so that knowledge and experience of the journey can outlive you. That's that legacy we're talking about. So you simply remain in the driving phase. Like you're just still driving. We're not making stuff to pass this generational wealth. If you or your successors can't replicate the path that led to success, when your vehicle runs out of gas or needs repair, you too begin that downward slide. Because when the vehicle runs out of gas, how do we fill it up? Where's the gas tank? How do we get this thing moving again? Arriving. By definition, you only have to stop creating. You don't want to hit arriving. Professional athletes do this all the time. Striving, driving, and I get my payday, and arriving. I've arrived. I don't need to keep creating and keep getting better. Unfortunately, they never set in processes and systems in place that keeps their money growing. A lot of them do this. People that win the lottery, same thing. I've arrived. I don't need to do anything better. I don't need to make my money, make me more money, pass on and bank these experiences that got me here. Because really, what is the experience of winning the lottery? It's tricky. We don't ever want to hit the arriving phase. We want to hit the thriving phase. And then because after arriving comes diving, and remember 4 minutes up, 3 minutes down, absent a system to educate, train, involve, and assist family members to actually think and act like first generation wealth builders, future generations are left to their own devices. They don't have that same grit that you gained by being a first generation wealth developer. Now we make them second generation. We kill that whole piece of the puzzle for them. We can't do that. We can't get to arriving and diving. We have to keep thriving. What are systems? What are new things? What are new ways? And so what happens is it's just this arch. It's 4 up, 3 down. We don't want second generation to take over at arrivers and then immediately become divers. We don't want to set up second and third generation to hit this. We want to set them up to be proactive and not reactive. We want them to be empowered, not entitled. We want them to continually find ways to grow and give and make the world a better place versus what the world owes me. We don't want them to dam up their wealth because they're not making the world a better place. They're not making the next generation a better third generation. They dam it up and then they become entitled. I have to protect my money. This money is mine. I have to protect this. Instead of how can I use this as a tributary, as an Amazon, to make a difference on the planet. So I know that's a lot, but I want to talk a little bit about estate planning versus family leadership. We always think about estate planning, right? This financial piece. How can we plan to pass all the resources? How can we pass the commercial real estate that we purchased, the buildings that we occupy, the homes that we've occupied, these things, these large amounts of resources that we've built over the years. So we do this estate planning process. Unfortunately, that makes it sound like an event, right? Estate planning is not an event. It's more like family leadership. So how many times do we see the heirs fighting over the metaphorical 9 irons, or quibbling over who gets which trophy? The cottage industry of estate planning has become very adept at efficiently, economically dividing up clubs and trophies among the heirs with very little regard to transferring the swing, which is to say the intangible wisdom, values, relationships, assets to future generations. This is the piece we have to be intentional about. This is why we have to have a legacy program. We have to capture this material, this information in audio, in video, in writing, so that it can be passed. We have to share this and not bank it under our beds. It's not an estate planning event. It is a process. Traditional estate planning often intentionally divides the wealth, which unintentionally destroys the family. The transfer of wealth without responsibility is a recipe for destroying wealth, and all too often tearing a family apart. This is why you see second-generation families, they don't even like each other. They can't even stand one another. It's because we haven't been intentional about equipping the whole family on how to handle that wealth. Passing along wealth without passing along the values and the wisdom is like giving your child the most phenomenal supercomputer. What a benefit, but no monitor. Just no monitor. No, you can't see what you're actually, what the work the computer's actually doing. So take the time to learn the lessons of your grandparents, how they coped with adversity, how they made their way and built a life during rough times. Children and grandchildren need to know what it's like to build from scratch. It's that trial and error piece. They need to experience the hunger and drive to build and create, which is often a result of not having needs met. Need the satisfaction of taking financial responsibility for their educations, for putting together the down payment on their homes, or for developing the discipline of learning to save and invest. All of this financial stuff in the planning phase can't rob the next generation of these items. These bring something to the table for the individual. Need to experience self-respect that comes from making it on one's own. Need to have the opportunity to assist their own children in getting a college education. Grandfather paid for my education and my kids' education. There's something there that if we're not careful, we will rob generations of that. So we want to set these assets up to not also clip the wings of the next second and third and fourth generation. Do we deprive our children and grandchildren from experiencing some of the greatest joys of pride, self-esteem, accomplishment? You're a business owner. You know what value pride, self-esteem, and accomplishment has brought to the table for you. These, you might say, are some of the biggest parts of how you got here. And they're a biggest part of who you are. And so when we set up systems that allow our children and grandchildren to take ownership of their potential outcomes, we're preparing a generation of leaders, not managers. A goal without a vision is just a suggestion or a recommendation. Vision creates ownership. The transfer of financial wealth without accompanying transfer of values affects everybody. You wouldn't really learn anything other than you can get something for nothing. That is not the lesson that you want to accidentally teach the next generation, is that they can get something for nothing. That's entitlement. We want to teach them to be leaders, to take the experience in the core and the contribution and all of these things and manage that as a leader would. Lead it, not just feel like, wow, I've gained all of this, I've done nothing for it. That is the worst. The transfer of wealth without accountability leads to trouble. We know a lot of family members, I have them in my own family, that has only led to trouble. What they gained from their father or their grandfather has only complicated their own lives. To apply quadrant living principles is to build rivers of health, rivers of wealth, not lakes. Quadrant living principles are concerned with securing the flow of the river and remaining confident that enough tributaries exist to ensure against stagnation. This river is vibrant, active, and life-sustaining. Leaders set the vision. Management carries it out. You can have management without leadership, and you can end with more activity than long-term results. You cannot have leadership without management. Good managers demand results now. Leaders invest in systems that will create greater results over the long term. Have you become phenomenal managers at home at the expense of family leadership? We don't want to be managers in our family, in our home. We want to be leaders. We don't want to set ourselves up to manage, because that's really just this how, not this why. And we want to set our children up to be leaders when they finally do receive a second generation benefit of some sort financially. We've been building into the core, into the experience, and teaching the contributions. So the 5 C's of true leadership: clarity. Does each member of your family understand the collective vision or purpose of the family? Consciousness. A leader is aware of the bond between his family and the universe. Not optimistic or pessimistic, but the glass is filled with both water and air. It's just we have this consciousness, this understanding. It's this leadership. Consistency, not compromising short-term wins for long-term success. Courage. A leader's objective is to consciously train the mind and body to act unconsciously in support of the group of the family's values and vision. The leader is a parent who understands that children or team members need role models, discipline, guidance, not simply another friend. A leader knows to make corrections along the journey, the hard decisions, the things that we have to backtrack a little to get right. This is courage. Compassion. A leader does not force anyone to change, but rather allows each person's unique ability to surface in a safe environment. In difficult situations, mistakes are regarded as learning opportunities. Bank them as learning opportunities, and leaders look to systems for solutions. It's not the failure of the individual, it's the failure of the system. Greater success is achieved when leaders ask, what worked? The danger of being merely managers is that we may give our children a vision of life as an endless to-do list, rather than guiding them to a vision of life that is ultimately about who they are, and not just about what they do. Who owns your future? How we spend our time each day is either a deposit or a withdrawal from the future. Every choice we make, every thought, every action, we're either depositing into the future or withdrawing from it. What are you doing? So, last portion here, 7 steps of quadrant motion. Rocket, the gratitude rock. Find a way to imprint gratitude, those moments of thankfulness. Stewardship is powerless without gratitude, without thankfulness, without understanding how we got here, why we got here, and how we're gonna keep going, how we're gonna become the thriver. Rocket, that's that bank it. And then acknowledge that appreciation by recognizing them through kind words, actions. Value and esteem will automatically surge as yours does. Gratitude is the lubricant that eliminates the wear and tear of daily trials and frustration. Gratitude is huge. Think it. Conscious thought. It's the light and darkness. Can't have the same space. It's creativity and negativity. Think it. Consciously think positivity. Some people live in the future in an effort to own their future. Some people live in the future in an effort to own it. This is who I am, I'm that. They try to own it that way. They either live in a kind of la-la land, or worse, they're constantly bringing tomorrow's clouds, what's not here yet, into today. One hat at a time. Think about it today. Live in today's day. Worry about the challenges today and crush those challenges. So think about today, not about the future. Our thoughts may be of the past or of the future, but they happen now. Think it. Support your conscious mind with positive thoughts and experiences. You gotta bank it by talking about it and think about positive, negative, what happened, what did we learn. Remember, our objective is to consciously train the mind and body to act unconsciously. It's to get it into our rote memory, into our muscle memory, into our DNA. In support of the vision, because what is the long-term goal here? What is the branding of our family? What is the family legacy? And then see it. You can't just think your vision, you gotta see it. A vision is the representation of your most important thoughts, dreams, and intentions. It's the new, unique you. My vision of the future sustains my present agonies. This is where we're going, this is why we're going through this is why we do these things, because this is where we're going. Isn't it our vision of the future that inspires, motivates, and sustains us, and those that accompany or follow us? The power of thought, coupled with vision, is an essential step in attracting your most amazing dreams. But it's not all you need. You also need to take the first step. So then be it. I was putting the essential at the mercy of the important. At any time, we don't become essentialists. We don't just focus on the essential and we allow the important. This is super important to dominate our days. We get off track. A lot of times people will trade quality family time and health to get more money so that in the future, we can have more quality time with the children. It's just the horse before the buggy. You're doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. Wrong thing for the right reasons. It's you're really focusing on growing a business at the sacrifice of quality family time, health, so that you could in the future have quality. Wrong thing, right reasons. Balance does not mean that you must spend equal time in each of the quadrants: contribution, experience, core, and financial. It's going to be a ever moving target. There is no right 25, 25, 25, 25. There isn't an equation like that. You just need to move each bucket forward. Move each forward with the next generation, with the people around you. And so that's you being it. And lastly, capture it. Capture it on paper. Capture it on audio. Capture it by talking about stories. Everyone in our family, in your family, has told stories of the past. Try to figure out why they keep telling those stories, what that story meant to them, so that you can take that as the quilt of your family. You want to convert these stories into capital. Shift it. Like attracts like. Objects in motion stay in motion. When you exude a sense of purpose that rivals Earth's gravity, you draw to you even greater relationships and opportunities. And so that's the essence of the Brouwer Quadrant. Family, it's a quilt. One generation stitched to the next. And gratitude for each other is the thread that holds us together. And so that's how we create this quilt. It's not about just the financials. It's about this quilt. How do we create this Brouwer Quadrant that allows our next generation to have the same experiences, to have the same core values, to grow upon those things, to use financials, assets that have been gained, but also allow them to go through the grind that's going to create the fabric and the core of these individuals, so that they can use this wealth appropriately, and it doesn't use them, it doesn't destroy them, it doesn't destroy their family, but it only accelerates their family. And so gratitude is a divine power that supports all the laws of attraction known to man. Being grateful, you know people that are ungrateful and people that are grateful. Don't you just love being around people who sincerely live in gratitude? Do you enjoy being around people who do not express gratitude? Nobody does. They actually repel great opportunities and relationships. You know this. People that are really good at what they do, but they are ungrateful. They repel opportunities. They repel relationships. Leadership is sustained by a leader's long-term vision and ability to engage those who surround him or her in the process of protecting that vision. It is family leadership, guiding the family through the opportunities of inheriting wisdom, values, traditions, relationships, spirituality, knowledge, and the self-esteem that comes from knowing they can make a difference on this planet. What we are really talking about are systems of family leadership. We're talking about legacy. We're talking about the 4 asset groups. It's legacy, the positive effect created by our influence that makes life better for those who follow.